So in the previous sections we were looking at radicals and roots. This section we're looking at radical equations. So they're actually equations with radicals in them. And when solving radical equations, our first step is to isolate the radical. So if we square a square root, it will remove the square root. So this is because they are inverse operations, they are opposites. So this is also something that we're going to have to be doing when we're solving these. And then also we must always check our answers in the original equation for false or extraneous solutions. So we could have false solutions, and they could be false for two reasons. So if you plug in the answer, the two sides of the equation don't equal each other. That's one possibility. Also, you could plug in the answer and it could give you the square root of a negative number, and we can't have that. So we can't take the square root of a negative number because a negative times a negative equals positive. This isn't a problem for cubed roots, so we can take the cubed root of a negative number, and we can't take even roots. So to be more generic, if the index is even, we can't take the root of a negative number. If it's odd, then we can. So there's actually two different ways to check your work on the calculator, to check your answers on the calculator. We can use the table, or we can use the calculator intersection. So I'm going to go through both ways when we get to the problems, but if you want to just quickly look at this screen, you can pause the video and take a look at it. But again, I'm going to talk more about it when we actually are checking our answers for a specific problem. So for number one, my first step is to isolate the radical. Meaning I want this to be on one side by itself. So if I add 5 to both sides, I can make this happen. So I have square root of 3x minus 2 is equal to 5. So now that the radical is isolated, I want to get rid of that radical. And I can get rid of a square root if I square it. So I want to square that side, and then to keep this legal, I need to square the other side. So squaring a square root gets rid of it, and I'm just left with what's on the inside, or a 3x minus 2. Squaring a 5 gives me 25. Then if I add 2 to both sides, I get 3x is equal to 27. And then divide both sides by 3, and x is equal to 9. So I need to check this first. And I'm going to check it with the table on the calculator. So if you go to your calculator, we need to make sure it's in the right mode. So you should only really have to do this once. You should press second and then window to get to table settings. And you want to make sure that your independent variable is set to ask and your dependent variable is set to auto. So make sure it's in that mode so that when you press table, which is second graph, then you should be able to just type in numbers here. You probably don't have a y1 and y2 yet because we need to actually enter in our sides of our equation. So let's do that. So in y1, I want to type in the left-hand side of my equation, and in y2 I want to type in the right-hand side of my equation, which was 0 in this case. So then, once you type those into y1 and y2 and the y equals, then press second table to get back to the table. And then in the x column you want to type in your answer. So I typed in 9, and if y1 and y2, if these two columns read the same thing, then that means that this answer is correct. So I just typed in a random number, I typed in 15, and you can see that these are not the same number, which means that 15 is not a solution. So these two columns need to be the same, and that means that 9 is a solution. So I'm going to go back, and I can circle 9 is indeed my solution.